A game engine can tell you a lot about what kind of experience you're going to get when you play the latest indie titles. Some engines handle 3D tasks better than others. Some are more designer-friendly with tools that allow you to learn game development right within the software. But the main difference between engines is how the developer talks to them. Unreal Engine utilizes C++ as its main programming language, whereas Unity communicates in C#. Both engines differ greatly from one another, as well as differ from engines like Godot that utilizes its own scripting language called GZDoom. We've all seen the splash screen from Unity. What should normally give you confidence in the product makes most people's stomach turn. Another half-assed Unity project on Steam. I can see the reviews now. When we announced that we were working in Unreal Engine 4 on our game, we were met with a flood of angry gamers wondering why we aren't using the brand new Unreal Engine 5 technology at our disposal. The truth is, most gamers don't actually understand game engines outside of the buzzwords that get thrown around in tech reveals, but these engines should be looked at as tools that developers can utilize. Not one engine is better than the other, they're all just different. Most people equate Unity with cheap, half-assed indie games until a game like Escape from Tarkov comes out and shows people just how far you can take these tools to create some truly unique experiences. I grew up in a time where Counter-Strike Source was dominating the PC charts. Releasing in 2004, I'm sure most people would be surprised to know that the first Titanfall was developed on Source Engine and released 10 years later in 2014. Following up from that, the second Titanfall game was built upon a heavily modified and custom version of that same Source Engine, releasing 12 years after the original engine came out. These games are a far cry from the early days of Source Engine, but managed to be built up, customized, and used in ways that most gamers couldn't even imagine. Decades-old tech being stretched to its limits to create art. And we see this a lot in the modding community, especially when you're talking about things like source porting. A source port is a porting of the source code from another engine. In the case of something like GZDoom, it's actually a source port of ZDoom, which was a source port of ATB-Doom, which was another source port of the original Doom source code that was released in December of 1997. A source port is essentially a branch in code developed by different people who then add, mod, and create different feature sets that previous source ports didn't have. ATB-Doom was one of the first source ports for modern Windows systems at the time, and this short-lived port led to the creation of ZDoom, which added things like slopes, uncapped frame rates, and Z-clipping to the engine. GZDoom then branched off from ZDoom and created one of the most robust source ports of all time, allowing unprecedented modding capabilities as well as graphical and performance optimizations for modern hardware. The first release of GZDoom was in August of 2005, and almost 20 years later, Celico is born. Celico is a brand new original FPS developed by Altered Orbit Studios utilizing GZDoom. This game recently released in early access for a price of $22.50 and takes everything that we love about retro shooters or boomer shooters and brings it into a dark, more gritty vibe akin to games like Fear. And although it doesn't have the same horror element that Fear does, a lot of things in this game remind me of those old school days. One feature this game got right is their AI. Although not the smartest in practice, what these devs do that many others don't is focus on communication and voice lines between enemies. You can hear them speaking while you're moving around the levels, communicating the player's position and trying to formulate an attack strategy to take you out. This alone makes the AI feel smarter than they actually are, and is something the original Fear games did wonderfully. I'll admit I'm not the biggest boomer shooter player. However, in the past couple of years, I've been slowly acclimating myself to the genre. And one thing I always fall in love with is the environments and the 3D art that propagates these levels. I find myself always just sitting in certain rooms and seeing how the developer's vision came together for the visuals. One thing that caught me off guard was when I first saw my character's reflection in a mirror. Now, you normally don't see that in video games, so it was such a nice surprise to actually see that the developers did this and how they pulled it off. Right now, the game is in early access, meaning you can play through the first chapter of what is going to be a 3-chapter experience, and it takes anywhere around 5 to 6 hours on average, although I have seen people take a lot more than that. Some of the biggest complaints within the first chapter experience is just how massive the maps are and how easily you get lost playing through it. There is an in-game map that shows you your position and key points on the map, but these levels are very maze-like in their construction, and it is easy to get lost while searching for the next objective. I've also seen complaints about difficulties in the game being unbalanced with armor and damage and health, but it seems the developers are actively patching and changing the way the game plays based on feedback. But the main point I want to make here is that Celico is a very good shooter. It's a boomer shooter with a more grounded movement and shooting style, allowing you to ADS, which is very cool in a game like this, with a dark, gritty vibe that I'm just in love with. Contrast that with a game like Warhammer Boltgun that is just fast-paced, typical boomer shooter, which, don't get me wrong, is still good, but I'm much more of a fan of a slower pace like this. And after looking into GZDoom, browsing forums and Reddit to see what this side of the gaming space has to say, I've completely fallen in love with this genre as an outsider who wants to play every game that releases now. I started digging into more titles that are built on GZDoom, some of which are still in development and coming out in the near future. If you're looking for a game that has a vibe more akin to the games I would normally cover, Brutal Fate is a fast-paced, ultra-violent retro shooter inspired by 80s and 90s sci-fi and looks like something out of a futuristic Tom Clancy novel. The reason I bring this game up first is because, look at it. It looks sick. But as I dove into the release window, I found a heartfelt message from the developer that was posted on April 28th of this year. The game is being slowly worked on. I have been facing issues with funding and dealing with depression, but plans of canceling or abandoning the game are not on the table. The full game's documentation is ready, the plot, level sketches, and everything else is done. They go on to say yes, the game will come in early access as I need that to get proper funding to pay for professional voice actors and a crew to help me polish the game. And I understand how people are averse to early access. I've paid for many early access games myself that got abandoned months, if not weeks, after early access launch. There's a lot more to this message, but it ends off with this. For now, I have to thank you all who's still keeping tens of thousands of wish lists. This is a game I dreamed about when I was a child, the big FPS with lots of big guns, gore, destructible environments, a branching story with multiple endings, and modding and multiplayer capabilities. Someday, I want to sit back, crack open a cold one, join a server, and play through the entire campaign with strangers on the internet. I want to play this game as much as you do. I will release this game. I will not give up. This is a personal promise. If you guys like what you see, wishlisting helps these developers more than you realize, and it's times like these where I wish I had the money to help out small developers like this. I really fucking do. The next game on this list is Apocalyptic Vibes, a vintage, immersive first-person shooter built on GZDoom. With an atmosphere of a cold and melancholic post-apocalypse, elements of diesel punk, mix of a retro style and realism, and romantic shoegaze as a soundtrack. That's the description on the Steam page, and just looking at the game, it looks like Stalker if Stalker released in the mid-90s. There is a free demo on Steam right now, and I'm hoping I can get this video out in time so that you can take advantage of the 20% off Steam sale going on as I record this video. But if you can't, wish list the game. And the last game on this list is a game called Hellslinger, where you blast your way through the hordes of hell as you strive to reclaim your soul in this narrative-driven FPS. And I have to say, this game has an amazing art style that actually made me question if it was truly built on GZDoom, and it is. Just an incredible visual style that you can try right now with their free demo on Steam. I started this video just wanting to focus on Celico, but there's so many shooters upcoming and out right now, whether it's a demo, early access, or full release, built on GZDoom, that just blows my fucking mind that games like this are still being built and supported, and there's a huge community of gamers who are froth at the mouth when more of these games keep coming out. It blows my mind that tech like this is being pushed to its limits with games like Celico, with art styles like Hellslinger, and everything in between. And it just goes to show you that it doesn't matter what engine you use as a developer. What matters is making good fucking games. And that's what it's all about. Let me know if you have played any of the games featured in today's video. Let me know what you think of the games featured in today's video. And leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for everything FPS. My name is BigFry. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.